Logan Brooks gazed at his reflection in the gleaming surface of the Astro 7's engine room console. At 26, he was the youngest engineer ever assigned to an interstellar research vessel, and definitely the most anxious one. He adjusted his standard-issue blue jumpsuit, attempting to appear more professional than he felt.
Engineering status report, the ship's AI announced in its metallic voice.
All systems nominal. Current internal temperature 20 degrees Celsius.
Thanks, but I can read the displays myself, Logan muttered, navigating through diagnostic screens. The fusion core's output seemed perfect, yet he couldn't shake the feeling he was overlooking something. 3 weeks into his assignment, and he still felt like an imposter among the crew, especially around certain members. The soft whoosh of the automatic door made him straighten. 2 identical figures entered the engine room, their movements synchronized with an otherworldly grace. Zelina and Arivia, the senior Credian twins. Despite appearing human at first glance, there was something ethereal about them that revealed their alien origins. Their flawless features and elegant demeanor made them look like they had stepped out of a classical painting. "Engineer Brooks," Zelina said, her voice carrying that distinctive musical quality that made his heart skip a beat. "We require your assistance with the thermal regulation systems in the research lab."
Logan tried to maintain his professional composure, despite how their presence always seemed to fill the room. "What seems to be the issue?" "The temperature has increased by 0.3 degrees," Arivia stated, leaning slightly closer than necessary to show him her datapad. Her long hair brushed against his arm, sending an unexpected jolt through him. This is unacceptable for our sensitive equipment."
3 degrees. Logan blinked, trying to focus on the technical problem rather than how distractingly close she was standing. "That's well within normal variance, perhaps," Zelina interjected, moving to his other side, effectively trapping him between them. "Such imprecision is acceptable, but Cryos technology requires exact temperature control." The twins exchanged a look over his head that made him wonder if they were aware of the effect they had on him.
"I'll take a look," he said, grabbing his toolkit. "Though I should warn you, my primitive human hands might struggle with your advanced technology." A hint of a smile played across Zelina's perfect lips. "We have faith in your abilities, Engineer Brooks." The walk to the research lab was interrupted by playful laughter echoing down the corridor. The younger twins, Naira and Senix, rounded the corner with an energy that seemed to illuminate the sterile corridor. Their standard flight suits somehow looked more like evening wear on their perfect frames. "Logan," Naira practically purred his name. "We were just discussing human courtship customs. Is it true that—" "Naira!" Zelina's sharp tone could have frozen hydrogen. "This is hardly appropriate conversation." Sinx's laugh was like silver bells. "We're just conducting cultural research, sister. Isn't that what we're here for?" She gave Logan a wink that made his collar feel suddenly tight. "The only research you should be conducting," Arivia said, though Logan noticed her eyes lingering on him longer than necessary, "is on our navigation trajectories and the stellar mapping." A violent shudder ran through the ship, cutting her off mid-sentence. Logan's engineering instincts kicked in. Before the alarm even sounded, without thinking, he reached out to steady Zelina as she stumbled, finding himself holding her for a moment longer than strictly necessary. "Warning," the ASI announced. "Unusual radiation signature detected. Shield modifications recommended." They rushed to the bridge, professional duties temporarily overriding the simmering tension between them. The ship's view screen showed a strange distortion in the star field ahead, a pattern he'd never seen before. "Analysis," he called out, sliding into the engineering station, very aware of how Naira and Sequelix kept finding reasons to brush past him as they moved to their stations. "Unknown energy pattern," Naira reported, her voice serious for once. "It's not in any of our databases." "Radiation levels increasing," Sanior added, though she still managed to shoot him a flirtatious glance. "Shield harmonics are fluctuating." Another tremor rocked the ship. Logan's displays lit up with warning indicators as systems began failing in cascade. The temperature control system flashed red. "Thermal regulators are offline," he announced, frantically trying to route power. "We're losing environmental control." "Impossible," Zelina said, leaning over his shoulder, so close he could feel her breath on his neck. "Our systems are designed with redundancies." "Well, they're failing anyway," Logan snapped, trying to ignore how her proximity was affecting his concentration. "Unless you've got a better solution." The ship lurched again, harder this time. Warning klaxons blared as more systems went dark. Logan noticed beads of sweat forming on the twins' faces,
as the temperature began to rise. Despite their human appearance, he knew their cryophysiology made them extremely sensitive to heat. Temperature now 23 degrees Celsius and rising, the AI reported calmly.
Zelina, Arivia, I need your research data on radiation patterns, now. Naira, Sayhix, plot us a course out of here. Maximum safe speed. The authority in his voice surprised even him, and he couldn't help noticing how quickly they responded, their usual cool demeanor cracking under pressure. Finding our limits already, Engineer Brooks? Arivia asked, her voice carrying a hint of something that definitely wasn't professional curiosity. You haven't seen my limits yet, Logan muttered, then immediately regretted his choice of words as he caught the interested looks from all four women. As the temperature continued to climb and systems failed around them, Logan realized this crisis was about to test more than just his engineering skills. The way the cryocan women kept looking at him, with a mixture of professional respect and something far more personal, suggested that maintaining professional boundaries might prove even more challenging than fixing the ship systems. Judging by the way the temperature kept rising, things were about to get a lot more interesting on the Astra 7. Temperature now 30 degrees Celsius and rising. The Astro's calm voice contrasted sharply with the mounting tension on the bridge. Logan wiped sweat from his forehead as he worked furiously at the engineering console. The Cryan women were showing increasing signs of distress, their usual composed demeanor cracking under the relentless heat. This is most uncomfortable, Zelina said, trying to maintain her scientific detachment, even as she tugged at the collar of her uniform. Human bodies appear better adapted to these conditions. Our environmental suits were designed for cold resistance, not heat dissipation, Arivia added, her voice strained. She'd moved closer to Logan's station, perhaps unconsciously drawn to the relative cool around him. We need to reduce our thermal signature, Logan said, fingers flying over the controls. Standard uniforms are engineered to retain heat. They're working against us now. Naira, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly perked up. Are you suggesting we modify our uniforms, Engineer Brooks? The playful tone was back in her voice, despite her obvious discomfort. Logan felt his face flush. And not just from the heat. I'm suggesting we adjust them, the emergency protocols. Actually, Zelina interrupted, her scientific curiosity seemingly overwhelming her cultural reservations, that's not an entirely inappropriate suggestion. Human thermal regulation, through perspiration, is quite efficient. Our own biology. She trailed off, looking uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Sister, are you actually advocating we change our attire? Arivia asked, though Logan noticed she was already unfastening the top buttons of her uniform. I'm evaluating survival, Zelina replied primly, though her eyes kept darting to Logan's exposed forearms where he'd rolled up his sleeves. Engineer Brooks, please explain human thermoregulation in detail. From her navigation station, Celix suddenly let out a small gasp. The heat, it's becoming unbearable. She swayed dramatically in her chair. Celix! Logan was at her side in an instant, supporting her. Her skin felt far too warm to the touch. Are you all right? Better now, she murmured, leaning into him with what he strongly suspected was unnecessary enthusiasm. You're so cool. Fascinating, Zelina observed, moving closer to study them. The temperature differential between human and Cretian body temperature in these conditions. She reached out to place a hand on Logan's arm, ostensibly for research purposes. The cooling effect is quite noticeable. Purely scientific, Arivia asked her twin with a raised eyebrow, though she too had drifted closer to Logan. Of course, Zelina replied, not removing her hand. Engineer Brooks, would you object to serving as a control subject for temperature comparison studies? Before Logan could respond, Naira had abandoned her station to join them. I believe proper scientific method requires multiple data points, she said innocently. We should all verify these findings. The heat is affecting your judgment, Logan said, trying to maintain some professional distance despite how the four beautiful women were gradually surrounding him. We need to focus on the ship systems. Our automated systems are functioning for the moment, Naira countered, and this is clearly a matter of crew safety. Isn't that your responsibility, Engineer? The temperature continued to climb, and Logan watched as the twins, one by one, began shedding their outer uniform layers, revealing the form-fitting thermal undergarments beneath. He tried to keep his eyes on his console, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. Temperature 35 degrees Celsius, the AI announced, as if to underscore the gravity of their situation. Logan, Zelina said, using his first name for the first time, her scientific facade cracking. Your thermal regulation abilities might be our best chance at preventing heat stress until we can repair the systems.
would you? That is, from a purely medical standpoint? What my sister is failing to ask, Naira cut in, is whether you'd be willing to share your naturally cooling presence with us. For survival purposes, of course. Logan looked at the four women, now all showing clear signs of heat distress, beakvanbily. Despite their attempts to maintain dignity, their cultural taboos about physical contact were wavering visibly with their need for relief from the heat. I suppose, he said carefully, if it's for survival purposes. Purely scientific, Zelina agreed quickly, though her hand hadn't left his arm. Absolutely professional, Arivia added, moving to his other side. Emergency procedures, Naira said, finding a reason to adjust his collar. Basic survival, Salix concluded, still leaning against him, as Logan found himself becoming the center of a very professional, very scientific, and very close group of stunning alien women. He couldn't help thinking that his engineering training hadn't quite prepared him for this kind of crisis management. That the temperature kept rising, and with it, the tension between maintaining proper protocol and preventing his crew from succumbing to the heat. Judging by the way the twins were looking at him, their usual cool reserve melting away with each degree increase, this was going to be a very long and intriguing shift. Perhaps, Zelina said, her scientific tone belied by how she pressed closer to Logan's cooler body, we should relocate to the engineering bay for more precise temperature monitoring. Excellent suggestion, Arivia agreed quickly. The diagnostic equipment there is more sophisticated. Logan tried to focus on walking normally, with four Krikarian women clustered around him like elegant satellites. Their touch taboo culture seemed to be rapidly evolving in the face of necessity and possibly other motivations. The engineering bay's relative isolation and abundance of monitoring equipment made it the logical choice, but Logan suspected the twins had other reasons for suggesting it. As the doors slid shut behind them, he noticed how they positioned themselves strategically around him. Temperature 37 degrees Celsius, the AI announced helpfully. This is becoming dangerous for cryonian physiology, Zelina observed, running a hand through her long hair in an uncharacteristically flustered gesture. Logan, would you mind if I conducted a direct comparative analysis? Before he could answer, she'd pressed herself against his side, sighing in relief at the temperature difference. Fascinating, she said. The cooling effect is most pronounced with direct. She caught herself, a blush coloring her cheeks. Direct proximity. As a scientist, I should verify these findings, Arivia said, claiming his other side for accuracy. Naira pouted from where she stood. Navigation officers require optimal temperature regulation too. Our calculations could be affected by heat stress. Indeed, Cynics agreed, moving closer. It would be terrible if we miscalculated our position due to thermal disruption. Logan found himself becoming a literal hotspot for four increasingly uninhibited Cryonan women. Their usual reserve was melting away with the heat, revealing personalities that had been hidden beneath their professional facades. Tell me, Logan, Naira said, trailing a finger down his arm, do all humans have such efficient thermal regulation, or are you a particularly good specimen? SX added with a grin, Logan struggled to maintain his professional demeanor. It varies by individual, but we should focus on the ship's systems. Oh, but this is crucial research, Zelina interrupted, her scientific vocabulary barely masking her interest. The interaction between human and Crysenian biology could have significant implications for future cooperation between our species. Arivia nodded seriously, though her hand had somehow found its way to his chest. We should document everything thoroughly for posterity. Speaking of documentation, Naira said innocently, human courtship rituals often involve close physical proximity, don't they? Perhaps we could combine our research objectives. That's hardly appropriate, Logan began, but was interrupted by another ship-wide shudder. The sudden movement sent them all stumbling. Logan instinctively reached out to steady the nearest twin, Zelina, and found himself holding her rather closer than protocol would normally allow. Her eyes widened at the contact, but she made no move to pull away. Quick reactions, she murmured. Another admirable human trait? Very admirable, Arivia agreed, watching them with undisguised interest. You know, SX said thoughtfully, on Krios, such quick thinking would merit a traditional gesture of gratitude. We're not on Krios, Zelina said quickly.
though she still hadn't moved from Logan's arms, and I'm sure Engineer Brooks isn't interested in our cultural practices.
Actually, Logan found himself saying, cultural exchange is part of our mission, isn't it? 4 pairs of eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. Well, Naira practically purred. In that case, we have so much to teach each other. The temperature continued to rise, but somehow Logan suspected that wasn't the only reason his uniform felt increasingly uncomfortable. As he looked at the 4 beautiful women surrounding him, their usual cool reserve replaced by something far more intriguing, he realized the real challenge wouldn't be fixing the ship systems. It would be surviving the increasingly heated attention of 4 Creonan women, who seemed to have decided that cultural exchange was their new primary mission objective. Temperature 39 degrees Celsius, the AI announced, seemingly oblivious to the tension in engineering. This cultural exchange idea, Naira said, moving closer to Logan while ostensibly checking a diagnostic panel, fascinates me. For instance, how do humans typically show appreciation? Logan tried to focus on the environmental controls, but it was increasingly difficult, with Naira practically draped over his shoulder. Well, usually we, on Krios, CX interrupted, sliding gracefully to his other side, we have many traditional ways of expressing gratitude. Would you like a demonstration? That's not exactly standard protocol, Zelina interjected, though Logan noticed she was watching the interaction with poorly concealed interest. Protocol seems rather flexible at the moment, Arivia observed, gesturing to their current state of attire. The twins had shed their outer uniforms down to their regulation undergarments, which somehow managed to look both professional and distractingly appealing. Logan wiped more sweat from his brow, trying to maintain his composure. The priority should be stabilizing the ship's systems. Of course, Zelina agreed quickly, moving to help him with the controls. Her long hair brushed against his arm as she leaned in. Though I must say, your cooling presence is quite remarkable. Purely from a scientific standpoint, Arivia added, though her tone suggested otherwise. Speaking of science, Naira said with a mischievous glint in her eye, I've been researching human physiological responses to various stimuli. For instance, she deliberately pressed closer, and Logan's physiological response was immediate and embarrassingly obvious. The twins exchanged knowing looks. Fascinating reaction, Zelina murmured, her scientific detachment slipping. Perhaps we should conduct more thorough observations for research purposes. Arivia agreed, moving to block the engineering bay entrance with a surprisingly soft motion. The ship systems. Logan started to protest, but was cut off by another violent shudder. This time, Senix practically fell into his arms. Oh my, she breathed, making no attempt to move away. How fortunate you have such quick reflexes. Very fortunate, Naira agreed, her eyes sparkling. Though, I think I might need catching too. This is highly irregular, Zelina said, though she was watching Logan's hands on her sister with obvious interest. Though I suppose in emergency situations, certain protocols can be adjusted. Exactly, Arivia said. Studying human thermal regulation could be crucial for future missions. We should be very thorough. Logan found himself surrounded by 4 increasingly bold Cretan women. Their usual reserve was completely abandoned in the rising heat, their cultural taboos seemingly melting away with each degree increase in temperature. I've always wondered, Naira said, fingering a finger down his chest, about human endurance levels. Your ability to maintain functionality in these conditions is impressive. Very impressive, Sangix agreed, pressing closer to his other side. Perhaps you could demonstrate other human capabilities for scientific documentation, Zelina added quickly, though her breathing had become noticeably uneven. Purely professional interest, Arivia said, moving to join the increasingly intimate group. Logan looked at the 4 stunning women surrounding him, their professional facades completely dropped, replaced by something far more primal and interesting. The ship's crisis seemed to have broken down all their cultural barriers, leaving raw attraction in its wake. Well, he said, surprising himself with his boldness, in the interest of interspecies cooperation. 4 pairs of eyes lit up with immediate interest. Do continue, Zelina breathed, her scientific objectivity completely forgotten. Temperature 40 degrees Celsius. I announced, as the engineering bay felt increasingly like a sauna. Logan found himself in an increasingly complex situation, as the 4 Creosan women's professional demeanor continued to melt away. The heat had pushed them well beyond their usual cultural boundaries,
leading to something unexpected but increasingly difficult to resist.
"You know," Naira said, her voice dropping to a sultry whisper, "on Krios, when someone saves your life, they become bound to you through an ancient tradition."
Life-saving might be an exaggeration, Logan managed, though his voice wasn't quite steady as she pressed closer. "Our body temperature is reaching dangerous levels," Zelina interjected, her scientific tone betrayed by the way she was looking at him. "Without your cooling presence, we could be in serious trouble."
"Sounds like life-saving to me," Sakes agreed gracefully, sliding closer. "Traditions must be honored." Quote, dot. The ship lurched again, sending them all stumbling. This time Logan found himself catching both Zelina and Arivia. Their bodies pressed against him, in a way that made it very difficult to think professionally. "Your quick reflexes are remarkable," Arivia murmured, making no move to step away. "Perhaps you could teach us more about human capabilities for scientific purposes," Zelina added quickly, though her hands had somehow found their way to his shoulders.
"Of course," Logan said, his own resistance weakening in the face of their obvious interest. "Cultural exchange is important." Quote, dot. Naira's eyes sparkled with triumph. "Then you wouldn't object to learning some Korean customs? Starting with our traditional greeting for honored allies?" Before Logan could respond, she had moved forward with fluid grace, her face inches from his. The other twins watched with intense interest, moving closer as if drawn by magnet force. "I believe," Sedek said softly, "this requires participation from all involved parties." The temperature continued to rise, but Logan barely noticed. The four stunning women had completely abandoned their usual reserve, their attraction obvious in every movement, every look, every touch. The ship's crisis had broken down all barriers between them, leading to something unexpected but increasingly difficult to resist. Hours later, the ship's temperature remained critically high, but the atmosphere and engineering had changed dramatically. The previous rigid professional boundaries between Logan and the Krenosian twins had transformed into something far more intimate. "Your human adaptation to heat is remarkable," Zelina said softly, her usual scientific detachment replaced by genuine admiration as she rested against his shoulder. "Though I admit my interest has become somewhat less than purely academic." "Less than academic," Arivia smiled, uncharacteristically relaxed as she traced patterns on Logan's arm. "Sister, I believe we've thoroughly abandoned scientific objectivity." Naira laughed from where she sat, close to Logan's other side. "Some experiments require a more personal approach." "Speaking of personal approaches," Six added with a mischievous glint, "I believe we still have many Crisian customs to teach you, Logan." The way she said his name, they all said his name now, had changed completely. Gone was the formal Engineer Brooks, replaced by something far more intimate. "The temperature is still rising," Logan noted, trying to maintain some focus on their actual crisis. "We need to stay very close." Naira interrupted, pressing nearer. "For survival purposes, of course." "Of course," Logan agreed, no longer bothering to hide his smile. "Though I'm starting to suspect your motivations aren't entirely survival-based." The twins exchanged knowing looks. Their previous cool reserve had melted away, entirely replaced by an open affection that made the ship's heat seem mild in comparison. "Perhaps," Zelina admitted, her fingers intertwining with his, "we've discovered that humans have unexpected qualities worth exploring." "Very worth exploring," Arivia agreed, her eyes meeting Logan with newfound warmth. The ship's crisis continued, but something far more interesting had developed in that heated engineering bay. Something that would change their mission and their lives in ways none of them had expected. Temperature reaching critical levels, 42 degrees Celsius. The AI's announcement cut through the intimate atmosphere that had developed in engineering. Logan reluctantly pulled himself from the comfortable circle of Krekenian women. Despite their newfound closeness, the ship's crisis demanded attention. "We need a solution fast," he said, his mind racing. "Your core temperatures are approaching dangerous levels." Zelina pressed against him, ostensibly checking the engineering displays. "Your human thermal regulation system," she mused, her scientific mind engaging despite their intimate situation. "Could we potentially adapt it somehow?" Arivia finished her twin's thought, moving to Logan's other side. "Create an emergency cooling system based on human physiology? Logan's eyes widened as the idea took shape. "The environmental systems," he began, excitement building. We could modify them to mimic human perspiration on a ship-wide scale. That would require significant modifications, Zelina said, her hands flying over the console, and a direct interface with human biological readings.
My readings?
Logan said, understanding what that meant. He would need to connect himself directly to the ship systems, making himself physically and emotionally vulnerable. Naira touched his arm gently. That could be dangerous for you. Very dangerous, CX agreed, concern evident in her voice, the energy requirements alone. But possible, Logan insisted, already starting to remove monitoring equipment from the walls. Zelina, Arivia, I need your expertise with the technical modifications. Naira, Celix, monitor ship systems and my vital signs. The twins moved with newfound purpose. Their previous flirtation transformed into focus and determination, though their touches lingered longer than strictly necessary, as they worked connecting environmental controls to human biosensors. Zelina reported, her fingers dancing across the console.
Logan will need to.
That is, you'll have to remove most of my clothing for proper sensor contact, he finished. The twins' reactions to his increasing exposure might have been amusing under other circumstances. For purely scientific purposes, Arivia murmured, though her eyes told a different story.
Of course,
Naira agreed with a smirk, helping attach sensors to Logan's bare chest, though I must say, human anatomy is fascinating.
Focus, Logan reminded them, though he couldn't help smiling. Ship first. Cultural exchange later. The modification process was intimate by necessity, requiring all four women to help connect Logan to the ship systems. Their touch was professional but tender, revealing how much their relationships had evolved since the crisis began. Ready for interface? Zelina announced, her hand lingering on Logan's shoulder. This will be intense.
We'll monitor you closely, Sinx promised, squeezing his hand. Logan nodded, bracing himself.
Do it!
The connection surged through him like liquid fire. His body's cooling system kicked into overdrive. As the ship's environmental controls synced with his physiology, he gasped at the sensation and immediately felt 4 pairs of hands steadying him. Remarkable, Zelina breathed, watching the readings. The ship is actually adopting human thermal regulation patterns.
Temperature dropping, Em reported excitedly. 41 degrees!
Logan barely heard them. Lost in the strange sensation of being connected to the ship itself, he felt every degree change, every system adjustment, as if they were happening within his own body.
Logan!
Arivia's worried voice cut through his daze. Are you all right? He managed to nod, leaning heavily against her. Just intense.
Temperature stabilizing at 25 degrees Celsius, the AI announced, sounding almost impressed.
The relief in the room was palpable. The 4 women surrounded Logan, supporting him as Zelina carefully disconnected the sensors. Their touch had changed again, no longer merely flirtatious or professional, but deeply personal. That was, Zelina started.
Incredible,
Arivia finished. We may have been hasty in our assessment of human capabilities, CX admitted, helping Logan to sit. Very hasty, Naira agreed, running her fingers through his hair. I believe we owe you several traditional gestures of gratitude. Speaking of traditions, Zelina said, unusually hesitant. There's an ancient Cryan custom for situations like this, when someone proves themselves exceptionally worthy. Arivia continued, exchanging meaningful looks with her sisters. They are offered a permanent position as a cultural liaison.
Naira added, her smile promising much more than official duties,
with very personal responsibilities. Sinix finished, her meaning clear. Logan looked at the 4 beautiful women surrounding him, their previous cool reserve replaced by open affection and invitation. A cultural liaison position? He asked, playing along. That sounds interesting. Very interesting, Zelina agreed, moving closer. We have so much to learn about each other.
And teach each other, Arivia added softly.
Though some lessons, Naira said with a suggestive smile, might require private instruction. Very private, CX agreed, as Logan looked at the 4 stunning women surrounding him, their previous cool reserve replaced by something far more intriguing. He knew the ship's crisis had changed everything between them. Their previous cultural barriers had melted away, replaced by something far more interesting and much warmer. "Well," he said, pulling them closer, "in the interest of interstellar relations." Their laughter filled the engineering bay, now comfortably cool but promising plenty of warmth in their future together.